Hello everyone, welcome to Think Like a Software Engineer, episode 2. Today we're going to talk a bit about error messages, and especially in JavaScript, which is notorious for sometimes having difficult error messages to read. Now, in front of us here we have a code sample up top and the terminal below. So if I run the code hitting this play button, we can see the results of our code below. So let's walk through the code one line at a time. On line 1, we establish a variable called number and have it set to the number 5. So we have this number variable holding the number 5. We then have a conditional statement that spans lines 3 through 7. And on line 3, it says if number is equivalent to 5, that is, if the variable number holds the number 5, then line 4, print out number is 5 to the terminal. Else, meaning if number is not 5, then print out number is not 5 to the terminal, and that's pretty straightforward. Now, when code works, that's awesome and simple. But thinking like a software engineer means dealing with when things don't work as planned. So let's deliberately throw in a monkey wrench into this code, and let's perform a simple typo. And let's say we typed in if nuxper is 5 instead of number. Now, when we run our code, we get a solid error message. Newcomers to code get scared off by error messages. They see some red text and they're like, oh, this is scary, I did something wrong, there's something wrong with me. However, an experienced software engineer knows that error messages are your friend. They're basically telling you exactly what the problem is. So here we have 7 lines of code. Imagine you had 1,000 lines of code. You know that there's an error, and then you have to comb through all the lines to figure out where it is. You don't have to do that because the error message tells you which line of code is a problem, and it tells you what the problem is. So if we look at this error message, we can see that the error takes place on line 3. That's what this means. Index.js:3 means the problem is on line 3, and it even prints out line 3 for you if nuxper equals 5, and then it tells you what the problem is. It says nuxper is not defined. And of course, when you look at this error message carefully, you're like, oh yeah, duh, nuxper is not defined. I meant to type in number. And then you would go ahead and fix your typo. And that's pretty straightforward. Now, even in this simple, good, easy error message, there is a lot of noise down below. So one of the keys to wading through an error message like this is knowing what lines in the error describe your code versus describe some internal JavaScript code. So here up top, you could see that on index.js, that's our file. 3, that means that that's referencing line 3. But everything below that, this loader.js and all that stuff, that is internal JavaScript libraries. That is code you don't have access to. That is not the real cause of your problem. You could ignore all that noise. Just don't get overwhelmed by these multiple lines of gobbledygook. Just look at the stuff up top. This is an easy error message. This is a well-defined error message. However, sometimes there are certain types of error messages that aren't as readily obvious as what they are trying to tell you. And it's not even necessarily obvious what line the problem truly is on. And this is especially true in JavaScript. So let's introduce another kind of error, and I'll show you what I mean. Let's remove these parentheses. Now in JavaScript, if statements require those parentheses. What happens when we remove them? So it says there's a problem on line 3, and it says if number equals 5. And it says syntax error, unexpected identifier. Now everything below that reference some internal JavaScript code. So the thing that we have to focus on is line 3, if number. You can see it even has these carrots, these arrows pointing to number, and it's saying unexpected identifier. So indeed, the problem here is on line 3. So that's super useful. However, when it's telling you unexpected identifier and pointing to the number with those 6 carrots, we look at that and you can get misled. You're like, there's something wrong with number. It's pointing to number and it's saying unexpected identifier. Number is unexpected. What am I doing with number? And you look at it and you're looking for typos. Did I type in nuxper again? No, what's going on, and you can get misled and focus on the word number itself, when really the problem is simply the lack of parentheses. So this is common with error messages where something is unexpected, such as here, unexpected identifier. What does it mean when something is unexpected? When JavaScript says that something is unexpected, that generally means that something is a sudden surprise. Like, hey, I didn't expect you. I expected something else to come before you. That's what unexpected means. I didn't expect this thing because I thought something else would come before it. So in this case, JavaScript saw the if keyword at the beginning of line 3, and it expects to see a parentheses, an opening parentheses before anything else. The fact that number came first before any open parentheses was unexpected. Hey, I didn't expect you, number. I expected something before you, namely the open parentheses. So don't get focused on the exact thing it's pointing to of number. The problem isn't actually with the word number itself. It's the fact that I expected something before number. So we have to put back our parentheses. Next, let's introduce another error. This error will be to throw in a semicolon where it doesn't belong. Now here, we get another similar error on line 5. So we can see that the error is taking place on line 5. The carets are pointing to else, and then we get a syntax error, unexpected token else. Now this case is a little trickier than the previous example because we can easily get fixated on line 5 because it says the problem is on line 5 and it's pointing to the else, and we're like, what is wrong with our else? Did I misspell it? And that's actually not what's going on. Rather, the problem here is that the else keyword is unexpected, which means that JavaScript was expecting something else to come before the else keyword, which means that the real problem comes somewhere before line 5, somewhere before the else keyword. Now, in this case, it's a little tricky to decipher why this is unexpected just because we have an extra semicolon. The true rationale for this is that when you say if number equals 5 semicolon, that actually closes out that if statement completely. It's done. So this if statement actually has been concluded. Then JavaScript processes this block here within the curly braces, console.log number is 5. And then we have this keyword else. But since the previous if statement has already been concluded, you cannot start a brand new conditional statement, an if statement, with an else. So JavaScript complains, unexpected token else. I didn't expect an else. I would expect some sort of if keyword to exist before the else. While there is an if keyword before, that if statement has been concluded. So to start a brand new conditional with else, that's unexpected to me. I would expect an if keyword to precede it. So when you get one of these error messages that complain about something being unexpected, if you do not immediately see the error on the line that the error message identifies, then look at some of the lines preceding this line and see if you accidentally concluded something before, if you're missing or you have extra curly braces or a semicolon or something like that, because the problem may lie in some of those preceding lines of code. Look for something that JavaScript is expecting before this line that it's complaining about. So here it's complaining about else. Look for what JavaScript might be expecting before the else. Otherwise, you might be staring at your errant code for quite some time. So being able to work through these error messages will allow you to quash bugs much more quickly and proceed with your daily life. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope to see you next week.